In Part 2, we introduced the realm from an impersonal view. Part 3 takes a superpersonal view by looking at the realm through the lens of our own consciousness. We begin by understanding what it means to experience the world as embodied beings. Our body is made of bits of earth working together to generate energy we use for life. Everything we experience is transmitted through our body and its capabilities. For instance, when we interact with another person, we may experience empathy, the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings by imagining what it would be like to be in that person's situation. We may take on their perspective, feel the way they feel, and may move to help them. This ability takes skill, and so some are better at it than others. What it means, though, is that we can internalize another's experience as our own because we share embodied experience. As it turns out, this is how we experience everything else too. We live in a spectrum between projecting what we think an experience is like to deeply accurate, empathetic ability. For instance, we may see someone crying and feel their sadness when in fact they are crying for happiness. It can feel a bit awkward if we realize our mistake. On the other hand, it can feel as if we are of one mind with another. We can experience grief with a friend who has suffered the loss of a mutual close loved one. One is a projection. The other is when our experience closely matches the other's experience. Both happen at the level of the human body. In a way, we are personifying everything. We can only experience things at the level of our own embodied experience. Out of necessity, everything is brought into the human level through our senses. To illustrate, let's say we interact with a tree. The tree is not human. We know this objectively, yet if we allow ourselves to, we can experience the tree as if it has human characteristics. We use the same system of knowing we have when we empathize with a person as with a tree. What's going on is that the tree is producing information of all kinds. Our body then takes that information, employs multisensory integration, and we experience the tree as we would another person. If we do this unskillfully, we are projecting our imagination into the experience. We are fitting the sensory information to the story we have in our head. This is often expressed as unmet expectations to things that we know should have been obvious to us. On the other hand, if we develop our perceptual skill, we can learn to deeply feel things and develop highly accurate intuition about it. We see this with those who are good with people, plants, and animals. Even artists have a sense of the inanimate medium they are using. Michelangelo expressed this when he said, "Every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it's the task of the sculptor to discover it." The sculptor sees beyond what is there into what is possible with surprising accuracy. It is a sense that most of us have not developed. When we talk with those with this sense, they use personification to express their relationships. It looks like we are attributing human characteristics to something non-human. When done skillfully, it is describing how one is processing sensory information and translating it into personified empathy. As Jewish theologian Neil Gaiman put it, quote, "We borrow aspects of familiar human experience to express a complex set of truths about a reality that transcends everyday experience," end quote. How far does this ability to sense and personify our experience go? With our modern tools, we have observed a single photon as well as galaxies at the edge of the observable universe. But what can we observe with just the body itself? The ethnobotanist and mystic Terence McKenna observed, quote, "The body is an incredibly sensitive and delicate instrument for interacting with the world," end quote. What is the capability of the body trained to explore the manifest realm by observing the workings of the mind and body? It seems we do not yet know. Consciousness baffles material science. The consistency and reproducible nature of experiences such as altered states of consciousness indicates there is more here than modern societies are aware of. When we seek to translate these complex experiences into words, just what are we talking about? The body seems to know things the mind does not. Everything gets translated from the body into sensations we can be aware of, including mental activity. It is most likely that we are in contact with reality outside our understanding of an experience. Our body and mind are working to translate this greater reality into something we can comprehend. If this was not so, there would be nothing we could learn about the world around us. If we consider our embodied way of being and communicating, then much of human history makes a great deal more sense. The stories of various ancient gods become communication of a deep understanding of the natural world and ways of being. To the untrained person, they are fanciful stories. To the initiated, they are gateways to our infinite being. Humans have experience with reality at many levels and translate them into human embodied expression, all of which can serve as a gateway of direct experience with a source of being that is beyond our everyday activity. These gateways are encoded in the stories of who we are and the larger world we live in. With this as a backdrop, we then can look at stories of how the realm came to be. They come from people living around the world in many different time periods. These stories use aspects of the cultures they came from to communicate deep understanding. They all sought to give people an understanding of their place in the world. Some of these stories were produced by those who had experiences where the body seems to know things well outside of the everyday senses. They are not strictly out of the imagination, but are from experiences that were felt to be deeply profound. Experiences filled with awe and with realization that they were somehow more real than ordinary realness. If we take people's mystical accounts seriously, we can conclude two things. 1. They are experiencing something real, not imaginary. And 2, many of them actually experiencing the same thing from their own perspective. People across history have observed the realm's origin in one way or another. The same essential vision has been had by people in every time and every place. How people understood it has differed from culture to culture. What is transmitted as important changes between times and places. Still, some go on to try and translate the experience and associated understanding into words for the benefit of others. From this come our faiths and philosophical traditions. This same observation, presented here as the conscious universe, is an origin story for our day. The experiences that gave rise to this story happened throughout the year 2019 to Samuel. Then over the next couple years, Samuel and his scribe Azariel worked to put it into words. A couple things may be helpful when considering the text. First, these experiences are most often being viewed from a perspective of non-separation or no-self. This makes putting them into language in conventional experience fairly difficult. The first-person view of I saw or I did feels so untrue it makes the information false. To transmit this information, various methods are used to shift the information from first-person to second or third-person perspective. Second, everything has to be put into everyday sensory experience. To do this, many things have been given personification or symbolic language to help us understand. In this way of describing, everything can be consciously aware and have the ability to take action. The realm is portrayed with beings who are in the act of discovery. Those beings may be to us inanimate, or an evolved superconsciousness, or something in between. This is why the superpersonal view is called the conscious universe. Lastly, we will see or hear the word supreme, S-U-P-R-E-E-M. This is not a misspelling or misuse of the word supreme, S-U-P-R-E-M-E, but an altering of spelling and use to communicate additional ideas that will be explained in the text.